The enigma of Earth. In the cold void of space, the Arcturus fleet emerged at the edge of the Sol system, their crystalline ships gleaming like shards of an ancient star. The fleet's lead vessel, Eternal Dawn, glided gracefully toward its destination, the third planet, known as Earth. Its commander, Admiral Vorks, stood tall and unflinching at the helm, her iridescent scales shifting through shades of deep violet and midnight blue. Her mind was sharp, honed by centuries of command. And yet, as she gazed at the glowing orb before her, she felt a prickling sensation at the back of her mind. Something was not quite right. Class 3 civilization at best. Commander Rix, her second in command, said, his voice steady. Their satellites are obsolete, relics from their past. No advanced weaponry detected. Standard first contact protocols should suffice. But Vorks's eyes narrowed as she studied the data on the holo display. Despite Rix's assessment, she was not convinced. The human race, so primitive, so chaotic, yet there was an undeniable intrigue about them. "Prepare the sensors," she ordered, her voice soft but commanding. "I want a deeper scan. Something about this world doesn't sit right." Rix paused, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "Are you suggesting that we might be dealing with something beyond the usual primitive species?" Vorks's mandibles clicked softly, a sign of thoughtful hesitation. "Perhaps. Let's observe carefully." As the fleet drifted closer, Vorks studied the shimmering planet beneath them. It seemed ordinary at first glance, with its oceans, continents, and swirling clouds. But the more she focused, the more the data began to disturb her. Earth's development was chaotic, fractured. It didn't follow the natural progression of technology. Most species advanced from combustion to fusion, from radio waves to quantum communications, each step a predictable leap forward. But the humans were different. They were developing on multiple fronts at once, and some of their technologies seemed out of sync with each other. "Look at this," Vorks said, pointing to the glowing holo display. "Fusion power side by side with combustion engines. Quantum communications alongside basic radio waves. These systems shouldn't be coexisting like this. And what's this?" She zoomed in on another set of readings, her scales flickering with surprise. "Gravity manipulation. This is unheard of." Her crew fell silent, processing the data. It wasn't just that the humans were developing strange technologies. They were experimenting with them in ways that defied known science. Some of their orbital defense platforms were equipped with advanced quantum sensors, while others appeared to be powered by ion engines, and yet others used what could only be described as primitive mechanical means. How could all these technologies exist at the same time? The implications were staggering. "I've never seen anything like this," said Venna, the fleet's sensor officer. "They're not just jumping between technologies. They're blending them. It's as if they're racing against themselves, trying to outpace their own progress." Admiral Vorks's mind raced. She had led dozens of first contact missions across the galaxy, each following a similar pattern. The civilizations they encountered were predictable, sometimes slow to evolve, sometimes fast, but always following the same path. But these humans, if they could even be called a coherent civilization, had done something different. They had intentionally mixed the old with the new, the primitive with the advanced. It was almost as if they were trying to hide their true potential, masking their true capabilities behind layers of confusion. "Send me the full report," Vorks said, her voice now more urgent. "I want to understand everything about their communications and defense systems." Venna quickly responded, tapping commands into the console. The display shifted, showing a web of signals encircling the entire planet. The humans weren't just sending out simple transmissions. They were sending messages across multiple frequencies, in hundreds of different encryption codes. There were thousands of protocols, some so complex that even the fleet's advanced systems struggled to analyze them. "What in the galaxy are they doing?" Rix muttered, his tone filled with disbelief. "They're not broadcasting their knowledge. They're hiding it," Vorks said, her voice quiet but filled with a sense of awe. This planet's entire communication network is designed to confuse and deceive. It's as if they're daring us to figure them out. Venus' frills twitched in fascination. But why? Why would they do this? Admiral Vork stood still, contemplating. It was a question that had never crossed her mind before. Why would a primitive species hide its advancements? Most civilizations sought to make contact, to show their worth, to align themselves with the greater galactic community. But the humans, they seemed to be doing the opposite. They were creating a false image of themselves, a mask. A sudden alarm cut through the tension. The tactical officer, Taz, spoke quickly. "Admiral, we're detecting movement in their orbital defense grid. The defunct satellites. They're coming online. They're changing position, and with surprising agility." Vork's heart skipped a beat. What had once been dismissed as mere space debris was now transforming before their very eyes. The seemingly outdated satellites were repositioning, their systems coming to life. Something was happening on Earth, something that no one had expected. "It's a mask," Vorks whispered, her scales rippling with a mixture of awe and concern. They'd been hiding their true capabilities. The crew stared at the screen, now filled with the shifting patterns of Earth's orbital platforms. The humans had known the Arcturus fleet was coming, and they had been waiting for this moment, this encounter. The question was, why? "Admiral," Taz's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Should we proceed with the usual contact protocols?" Vorks turned sharply, her gaze unwavering. "No, we need to proceed with caution. Seigel, signal the fleet to maintain distance. I want every sensor focused on that planet. We must understand what we're dealing with before making any further moves." For 3 days, the Arcturus fleet hovered silently above Earth, studying it from a distance. They watched as the humans continued their mysterious operations, developing technologies and tactics that no other race had ever attempted. They were a puzzle, an enigma that no one had been able to solve. But the one thing that was clear was that humanity was far more advanced than anyone had anticipated, and they were ready for contact. On the 4th day, the first message from Earth arrived. It wasn't a frantic plea for help or an angry demand for the fleet to leave. No, it was a simple text message, transmitted in every known communication protocol the Empire used. But it wasn't just the basic protocols. They had used systems that the Arcturus Empire didn't even recognize. It was a message that only one species could have sent. "We've been expecting you. Perhaps we should talk." Admiral Vork's eyes widened, her scales turning deep blue. She had encountered countless species in her long career, but never had she encountered one so prepared, so calculated. These humans hadn't been waiting for any old alien race. They had been expecting the Arcturus Empire specifically. And that, more than anything else, made her realize just how much they had underestimated humanity. "Send word to the Imperial Council," Vorks ordered, her voice firm. "Tell them we've encountered something unprecedented. This will not be a standard incorporation mission." She turned back to the holo display, watching Earth slowly rotate in the dark expanse. "This is only the beginning," she whispered, her tone filled with a mixture of respect and uncertainty. And with that, the galaxy's most powerful empire stood at the threshold of an entirely new kind of war, one that they were not yet prepared for. The hidden potential of Earth. The Arcturus fleet hovered in silence above Earth, its ships refracting the distant light of the sun, their crystalline structures shimmering like stars frozen in time. Admiral Vork stood on the bridge of the eternal dawn, her eyes fixed on the small blue planet below. The simple text message they had received had left her deeply unsettled. "We've been expecting you. Perhaps we should talk." It was a message that spoke of a preparedness beyond any expectation, a calm confidence that the humans had not only known about the Arcturus Empire, but had been waiting for this very moment. Vorks paced slowly, her thoughts churning like the vast cosmic clouds outside. For 3 days, the fleet had observed Earth without direct contact. The humans were not the primitive, scattered species that Rix had expected. Instead, they were a unified force, hiding their true strength behind layers of complexity. They had deceived the Arcturus sensors with their technological misdirection, weaving together advancements in ways that defied all logic. They were an enigma. And yet, they had known the fleet's approach. "Admiral," Commander Rix's voice broke her reverie. The message was clear. They're ready to engage. Should we initiate contact? Vork's scales flickered a deep purple. Her instincts, honed through centuries of first contact missions, told her to be cautious. The Empire's protocol was clear. Make contact, analyze their capabilities, assess the threat. But these humans were not like other species. They were unpredictable, intelligent in ways that were alien to the Empire's understanding of development. "Prepare a transmission," Vork said, her voice sharp. "But we will not approach directly. I want to see how they react. We will test their response." For the next hour, the fleet's communications officer transmitted a single line of text to Earth. It was simple, even formal. "We are the Arcturus Empire. State your intentions." The response came almost immediately, far quicker than any species they had encountered before. It wasn't a simple reply. It was a complex stream of messages, transmitted across multiple frequencies, as if the humans were answering the Empire's question in layers. Some messages were cryptic, some in languages that were ancient and nearly forgotten, others in mathematical formulas that suggested a mind far more advanced than their outward technology would imply. It wasn't just the content that alarmed Vork, it was the method of communication. The humans were not just answering. They were sending a message that spanned multiple dimensions of thought. There was something behind the words, something that hinted at a deeper level of intelligence. Rix leaned over, studying the data as it streamed across the holographic display. This isn't just communication. It's a test. They're gauging our capabilities, just as we're trying to gauge theirs. The entire crew was transfixed by the complexity of the humans' response. The message didn't follow the traditional formats that the Arcturus Empire was used to. In fact, it didn't even follow their typical notion of logic. It was as if the humans were communicating on a level that the Empire had no framework for understanding. The protocols they used were unfamiliar, but their patterns, there was an almost artistic flow to it, as if each message was designed not only to convey meaning, but to provoke a reaction. "I knew it," Vork murmured, her mandibles clicking in realization. They'd been expecting us. But not just any empire. The Arcturus Empire. They knew exactly who we were before we even arrived. The shock of it reverberated throughout the bridge. The humans had anticipated their every move. They weren't just trying to make contact. They had been preparing for it, perhaps for centuries. It was as if Earth had been preparing for an inevitable encounter with a force like the Arcturus Empire. But how? And why? "Venna," Vork said, turning toward the sensor officer, her voice tight. "Scan their planet again. I want to know how they've known about us for so long. Are there any hidden messages? Any signs that this was planned?" Venna's fingers flew over the control panel, rerouting the fleet's most advanced scanners to probe Earth's history and communications in greater detail. The display flickered as the new data flooded in. Satellite records, historical transmissions, encrypted messages, all dating back hundreds of years. It was there, hidden in the archives, an encrypted message, almost lost to time. Vork's breath caught as the message decoded, revealing an ancient signal, a message from Earth's distant past, broadcast into the cosmos. It was a call for help, not from a species that had just discovered space, but from one that was aware of the universe far beyond their homeworld. "Admiral," Venna said, her voice trembling with the weight of her discovery. "This is it. The humans, this species, they've been reaching out for centuries. They knew of alien life long before their first space travel. This message, this signal, it's been waiting for us." The transmission was from long before humanity's modern era, a plea for contact with any spacefaring civilization. But what was truly astonishing was the sophistication of the signal. The humans had been sending signals into space for millennia, each one more refined, more intelligent, until finally it had reached the Arcturus Empire. They hadn't just been hoping to be found. They had been preparing, anticipating, watching the stars for the day when the Arcturus Empire would arrive. A chill ran down Vork's spine. The humans had not only been waiting for them. They had been ready for this moment, planning for it, perhaps from the very beginning. Rix turned to Vork's, his voice now filled with a quiet awe. "Do you think they knew we would come? That they knew the Arcturus Empire would be the ones to find them?" Vork's looked down at the holographic display showing Earth, its swirling oceans and vibrant landmasses turning slowly in the vastness of space. For the first time, she felt a sense of deep respect for this species. They were unlike anything the Arcturus Empire had encountered. They were cunning, resourceful, and driven by an ambition that could not be ignored. "I believe," she said slowly, her voice carrying the weight of a new realization, "that these humans have known about us for far longer than we ever imagined. And they are not afraid. They are ready." The decision was made. The Arcturus Empire would move forward, but not as conquerors. These humans were not like the others they had encountered, and it would be a mistake to underestimate them. "Commander Rix, prepare the fleet," Vork's commanded. "We will make contact, but carefully. We will not force our way into their world. We will learn their true intentions, but we will respect their strength." As the fleet prepared for what could be the most important encounter in Arcturus history, Vork's felt a strange sense of anticipation. For the first time in her long career, she wasn't sure what to expect. But one thing was certain: this would not be an ordinary first contact. This was the beginning of something new, something humanity had prepared for, but the Empire was still learning to understand. And as Earth rotated beneath her, Admiral Vork's knew that the fate of both civilizations hung in the balance. The question now was simple: would the Arcturus Empire be ready for what was to come next? Unveiling the human strategy. The eternal dawn hung in orbit above Earth like a silent sentinel, watching, waiting. The Arcturus fleet had made their presence known, yet no further communication had been initiated by the humans. It had been nearly a day since their cryptic message: "We've been expecting you. Perhaps we should talk." And despite the calmness in the message, Admiral Vork's couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into a carefully crafted trap. She paced back and forth across the bridge, her mind heavy with the weight of what they had discovered. The human species had not only been waiting for them, they had known exactly who would come. The message hidden in Earth's ancient archives was proof of that. But how? Why had they, a seemingly primitive race, been so prepared for an empire as vast and powerful as the Arcturus? Commander Rix broke her thoughts, his voice steady but filled with curiosity. "Admiral, the fleet is ready for your orders. Should we send a direct transmission, or continue observing from a distance?" Vork's gaze shifted to the holo display showing Earth's continents below, the planet rotating slowly in space. The human world had grown more complex with every scan. It wasn't just their technology that baffled her. It was their thinking, their strategy. The more they observed, the more the humans' intelligence became apparent, not just in their technological advancements, but in their social structure, their military strategies, even their culture. Earth was a boiling pot of contradictions, and yet there was something unifying it all. A deep underlying cohesion that the Arcturus Empire could not easily comprehend. "We will move forward cautiously," Vork's finally said, her voice firm. "But we will not act impulsively. Prepare the fleet for a controlled descent. Let's see if the humans engage us further. Their next move will tell us everything we need to know." For the first time in her long career, Vork's felt a thrill of excitement. She had encountered many species, many civilizations, but never one that seemed so determined to keep its secrets. These humans, in their unexpected complexity, were like a puzzle that had yet to be solved. As the Arcturus fleet descended closer to Earth, their scanners picked up subtle shifts in the planet's atmosphere. The humans were reacting. But instead of panic or resistance, there was a calmness, a quiet readiness that was almost unnerving. The humans weren't just waiting to make contact. They were observing the fleet, evaluating its every move, anticipating its actions with a precision that left Forks in awe. Admiral Venna, the sensor officer, spoke up. "I'm picking up a new signal, but it's unlike anything we've seen before. It's not a direct message, more like an invitation, but with coded layers. It's sophisticated, almost like they're speaking in a language we don't understand. Invite them to speak directly with us," Vork said, her mind racing. "Prepare the translator array. Let's see if they're ready to reveal their true intentions." The signal was a mixture of various frequencies and wave patterns, layered with encryption that no ordinary species could possibly construct. It was as if the humans had invented an entirely new form of communication, one designed specifically to test the intellect of any species attempting to make contact. This wasn't just a message. It was a challenge, an intellectual duel. As the fleet's communication systems deciphered the layers of the message, a new text appeared on the central holo display. This time, the message was clearer. "We see you, Arcturus. We know your history. We know your power, but we do not seek war. We seek understanding. What do you offer in exchange for peace?" Vork's mandibles clicked in surprise. The words were direct, but the message behind them was far more intricate. The humans were not afraid. They had known about the Arcturus Empire long before the fleet had arrived. And now they were testing the Empire's intentions. Rix, always quick to analyze, spoke up. "They're asking us to define ourselves. They're forcing us to reveal our true motivations. If we come across as threatening or imperialistic, they'll refuse to engage. But if we appear open to dialogue, they'll meet us halfway." "It's a test," Vork said, her voice low but filled with a sense of admiration. "They're not just questioning us. They're forcing us to prove our worth. We cannot afford to make a misstep." Hours passed as the fleet prepared for the next step in this delicate dance. The humans were not acting out of fear or aggression. They were calculating, and it was clear that they had been preparing for this moment for a long time. They had studied the Arcturus Empire's every move, every known tactic, and now they were using that knowledge to test the boundaries of what the Empire would be willing to do. Vorks found herself pacing again, her mind racing through countless possibilities. What would happen if the humans refused to speak to them? What if their response was not just a test of intellect but of their strength? These humans were far more than they appeared. Their chaotic technological development, their strange communication methods, their ability to predict the Empire's actions. It all pointed to one undeniable truth. They were more advanced than they let on. "Venna, reroute the fleet's sensors to scan for any signs of human military capabilities," Vorks ordered. "I want to know what we're dealing with. If they have prepared for us, they must have something to defend themselves with." As Venna manipulated the control panels, the ship's systems began to scan the surface of Earth more thoroughly. The results were nothing short of astonishing. What had once appeared to be a primitive planet, with old satellites and outdated technology, was now showing signs of something far more advanced. Hidden military assets scattered across the globe. There were underground facilities, shielded by layers of deception, their presence masked by the very same methods the humans had used to hide their true technological progress. "It seems they've been hiding entire military installations from us," Venna said, her voice filled with awe. "And these systems, they're not just advanced. They're designed to be unpredictable. They don't rely on the typical patterns we'd expect from a galactic power. They've created a defense network that is almost chaotic." Vork's eyes narrowed as the realization hit her. The humans didn't just want to test the Arcturus Empire. They were testing the Empire's understanding of the universe itself. They were forcing them to think differently, to move beyond the confines of what they had learned over centuries of dominance. "Prepare the transmission," Vork said, her voice resolute. "Tell them that we are ready to talk. But understand this, If they intend to play games, we will not be tricked. We come in peace, but we are not weak. We will stand our ground." As the transmission was sent, Vorks watched the planet below, wondering just how far these humans were willing to go to ensure their own survival. Were they truly as peaceful as their messages suggested, or was there something far more complex at play? The Arcturus Empire had always believed that it was the most powerful force in the galaxy. But as Vorks looked at Earth, she realized that this was a fight unlike any other. The humans might not possess the same level of technological might, but they had something far more dangerous: ingenuity. And ingenuity, as the Arcturus Empire was about to learn, was a power in itself. The heart of the humans' plan. The fleet had fallen into a tense silence, awaiting the response from Earth. For the first time in the history of the Arcturus Empire, an alien species had shown no fear, no submission. Instead, the humans had demonstrated something far more dangerous: intelligence, strategy, and an uncanny ability to turn their weaknesses into strengths. Admiral Vorks stood before the holographic display, her gaze locked on the swirling oceans of Earth below. Every move she made was being watched, every decision scrutinized by her crew, who had come to expect nothing less than dominance from the Arcturus Empire. But these humans, they were rewriting the rules. They weren't following the path that the Arcturus Empire had predicted for them. They had evolved beyond their own limitations and were testing the very boundaries of what the Empire could comprehend. "Admiral, we have a new signal," Venna, the sensor officer, called out, breaking Vorks's deep thought. "It's not the same as before. This one is more direct." Vorks's antennae flickered. The humans had been indirect, testing their patience and trying to decode the Empire's true intentions. Now, a more direct signal. This was a new development. "Show it to me," Vorks ordered, her voice sharp. The holo display shifted, showing the text that had been transmitted from Earth. "We have seen your fleet, Arcturus. We know your strength. We know the devastation you can bring. But we also know your weakness. You rely on your power, your size, your technology. But we have something you do not have, something you cannot understand. We have the will to fight for what is ours. And we will never surrender. We will never bow to anyone." The words were simple, yet charged with an undeniable power. Vorks could feel the weight of them, as if they were a challenge, an assertion of independence and resolve. The humans weren't just asking questions anymore. They were issuing a declaration. "Do they intend to provoke us?" Rix asked, his voice laced with a mix of disbelief and caution. "This message doesn't sound like an invitation to peace. It sounds like a warning." "Not a warning," Vorks replied, her voice soft but resolute. "It's a statement of intent. They're preparing for something, and they want us to know that they are ready to stand their ground." She turned to the communication officer, her voice taking on a tone of authority. "Prepare a response. Let them know we have no intention of starting a conflict. We come seeking knowledge, not war. But they must understand that if they push us too far, there will be consequences." As the message was sent, Vorks's mind raced. The humans were playing a game of cat and mouse, drawing the Arcturus Empire closer without ever revealing their true hand. And now, it seemed, they had made their move. They weren't afraid. They weren't running. They were testing the very limits of the Empire's resolve. On Earth, the response to the Arcturus fleet's transmission was swift and calculated. The leaders of Earth, who had been watching the alien ships with a mixture of awe and fear, gathered in a secure facility hidden deep underground. The planet had been preparing for this moment for centuries, and now that it had arrived, humanity's leaders knew that the stakes were higher than ever. President Ilara Mitchell, a woman who had risen from the ranks of Earth's military command, stood at the head of the table, her expression one of calm determination. She was no stranger to conflict. The world had seen wars, devastation, and disaster, but nothing had prepared her for this. The sudden arrival of a fleet from beyond the stars, a force that could wipe out entire civilizations with a flick of a switch. The Arcturus Empire, she said, her voice steady, has made its intentions clear. They want to talk, but they've also made it clear that they're prepared to act if necessary. We knew this day would come, and now we must be ready. General Alexei Kova, a veteran strategist who had studied every possible scenario of first contact, spoke up. We've been preparing for this for years. Our technology may not be on their level, but our resolve is. We know how to survive. We know how to adapt. If they come to take us, we will fight back. Mitchell nodded, her eyes scanning the room. But we also know something else. We know that they don't understand us. They think we're just another primitive species, struggling to make our way in the universe. But what they don't realize is that we've been watching them too. We've studied the Arcturus Empire just as much as they studied us. She paused, allowing her words to sink in. We know their weaknesses. Kova's eyes narrowed. We don't just have to fight them with our weapons. We need to fight them with our minds. If they think they've already figured us out, we need to show them that we have more to offer than they can possibly imagine. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the weight of her words. Mitchell was right. The humans weren't just preparing to fight with their weapons. They were preparing to fight with their ingenuity, their unpredictability, and their ability to think outside the box. We've developed our own strategies, Mitchell continued, and we've built weapons that can target their weaknesses. We've seen the way they rely on technology, on massive fleets, on overwhelming force. But we've also seen the way they think. They believe in structure, in order, in dominance. And that's something we can exploit. General Kova stepped forward. A map of Earth's defenses projected onto the table. We've scattered our defense systems across the planet. They're not in one place. We've hidden them in plain sight, behind layers of deception. And we've created weapons that are not based on traditional physics. We're not just going to fight them with lasers and bombs. We have something else. Mitchell turned to him, her eyes focused. What else do we have, Alexei? Kova's face softened with a rare smile. We have the element of surprise. We have the will to win. And most importantly, we have each other. Our unity is our greatest strength. And we'll make sure they know it. The transmission to the Arcturus Empire was sent. This time, the message was not a threat, nor a challenge. It was an invitation, a request for a meeting, to discuss the future of both civilizations. But as the message was received by the fleet, the Arcturus officers felt a strange tension fill the air. They had expected to face a primitive species on the verge of collapse. What they had found instead was a race that had not only survived but had prepared. Earth was not a weak planet. It was a fortress, hidden beneath layers of complexity. Vork stood silently in front of the display, watching the blue planet below. The humans had sent their message, and it was clear. They were not afraid. They were not backing down. And for the first time in centuries, the Arcturus Empire was faced with the uncertainty of what came next. The humans weren't just trying to survive. They were trying to redefine the rules of engagement. They had no intention of surrendering, no intention of being conquered. The question now was simple. Would the Arcturus Empire be able to adapt to the humans' way of thinking, or would it be forced to confront an enemy unlike any it had ever faced before? The game had changed, and neither side knew how it would end. The art of deception. As the Arcturus fleet hovered above Earth, the tension between the two species grew unbearable. Admiral Vork's thoughts were as sharp as ever, but the uncertainty in the air was palpable. She had encountered countless races, and each one had followed the same predictable pattern: fear, submission, or a token resistance followed by a swift subjugation. The humans, however, were rewriting the entire playbook. There was no fear in their eyes, only resolve. But it wasn't just their courage that had impressed her. It was their ingenuity. For the past few days, the humans had continued to send small, cryptic messages, full of contradictions and subtle taunts. At first, Vorks had thought the messages were mere attempts at establishing their presence, but as each new transmission arrived, It became clear that they were more than that. The humans were trying to communicate something deeper, something far beyond the surface of their words. Admiral Venna, the sensor officer, spoke up from her station, her tone urgent. There's something strange happening. The humans, they're altering their planetary defenses. They're shifting them into positions we can't track. It's as if they're expecting something from us, something specific. Vorks's antennae flickered in irritation. We've known from the start that they're hiding something. But this is something new. They're not just adjusting their defenses, they're moving them as though they know exactly what we're planning. The Admiral studied the holographic map of Earth's surface, her eyes scanning the constantly shifting patterns. The humans had placed their defenses in seemingly random locations, and yet each change seemed to anticipate the Arcturus fleet's every move. It was as if they were playing a game of chess, each piece being moved at just the right moment to throw the enemy off balance. It's like they can see us, Venna continued. Every time we make a move, they adjust theirs. It's as though they're one step ahead of us, every time. Vorks's mandibles clicked in thought. This was no ordinary race of simpletons. The humans had mastered the art of misdirection, of using the vastness of their planet to cloak their true capabilities. For the Arcturus Empire, this was an unfamiliar form of warfare, subtle, elusive, and intelligent. In all her years of military command, Vorks had never encountered an enemy who didn't play by the same rules. But the humans weren't playing by any rules at all. They were creating their own. On Earth, President Ilara Mitchell sat in her command center, watching the same data with a mixture of amusement and concern. The Arcturus fleet had been hovering in orbit for days, scanning and analyzing, expecting humanity to cower in fear or make a fatal mistake. But Mitchell knew better. She knew that Earth's survival depended not on their strength, but on their ability to deceive, to make the Arcturus believe they were something they were not. General Kova, she said, her voice calm but laced with an unshakable certainty, the fleet is getting too close. It's time we put our final plan into motion. Kova, standing at her side, nodded solemnly. They'd been circling us for long enough. It's only a matter of time before they make their move. We've got to act before they decide to test our defenses. Mitchell's eyes narrowed. It's not just about defense. It's about perception. If we give them a single opening, they'll exploit it. But if we keep them guessing, keep them off balance, they won't know what to do next. A series of tactical maps and schematics flickered across the room, displaying Earth's defenses, communication networks, and hidden technologies. The Arcturus Empire believed it was dealing with a primitive species, but Mitchell knew that perception was the weapon they needed to use. Earth's true strength wasn't in its military might. It was in its ability to deceive. We've made sure they see only what we want them to see, she continued. We've scattered decoys, deployed misinformation, and adjusted our tactics at every turn. It's a strategy built on confusion. General Kova grinned. It's the oldest trick in the book, deception. But it's working. The Arcturus fleet doesn't know what to believe anymore. Every time they think they've figured us out, we change the game. Mitchell nodded. Exactly. They've underestimated us. But we're not just hiding behind our defenses. We're hiding in plain sight. They think they know what's on Earth. But they've only seen the surface. What they don't realize is that we've developed entire systems, intelligent, self-replicating drones designed to mimic our technology. The fleet has no idea what they're actually seeing. Back in orbit, Vorks and her crew were growing frustrated. The fleet had been in place long enough to make their observations, and yet the humans refused to reveal anything substantial. Every time they attempted to analyze a human installation or communication network, the results were either incomplete or misleading. It was as if the humans had anticipated their every move. They're playing games with us, Vorks muttered, her frustration mounting. The patterns don't add up. It's almost as if every bit of data we receive is designed to lead us down the wrong path. Rix leaned in, his eyes scanning the various readings. They're not just hiding their technology, Admiral. They're hiding their intentions. Every time we think we've got a lock on something, it shifts. They're constantly changing the game. Vork's mind raced. If they're hiding their true intentions, what could they be planning? The Arcturus Empire was a force of unparalleled might, with advanced technologies and tactics honed over millennia of galactic conquest. They had faced rebellion, resistance, and even full-scale war before, but they had never encountered an enemy like this. An enemy that didn't just hide, but actively missiled, creating false trails and false alarms. It was as if the humans didn't just want to protect their planet. They wanted to outsmart the Arcturus Empire at its own game. Have we identified any consistent anomalies? Vorks asked, her voice now steady despite the confusion. Vena nodded. Yes, Admiral. There's a pattern to their misdirection. Every time we focus on one signal, another one appears, more urgent, more appealing. It's as if they're playing a game of chess, and we're the pieces. I don't like it, Rix muttered, his face drawn in concentration. This doesn't feel like a standard first contact scenario anymore. They're not just waiting for us to make a mistake. They're actively setting traps for us. Vork stood silent for a moment, contemplating the human strategy. The pieces were slowly falling into place. They had been expecting us. This entire scenario, all of it, the waiting, the misdirection, the subtle traps, had been planned for decades, perhaps centuries. The humans were not just trying to survive. They were trying to win, and they were doing it with the one weapon the Arcturus Empire had never truly prepared for: cunning. We'll need to play this differently, Vork said, her voice filled with newfound respect. These humans are not what they seem. We need to adapt our strategy before they force us into a confrontation. As the humans continued to manipulate the narrative from below, President Mitchell watched the Arcturus fleet through satellite feeds. She knew that, for now, the game was working. The Empire was getting frustrated, and they had only begun to see a glimpse of what humanity was capable of. But this wasn't just a game of deception. This was about survival. Mitchell wasn't playing for a draw. She was playing to win. And if she could keep the Arcturus Empire guessing just long enough, maybe, just maybe, the humans could outwit even the greatest force in the galaxy. The art of deception had always been humanity's secret weapon, and in the great cosmic chess game, it was their move.